Hello and welcome to Take a Wander with Shebs. Now my guest today is photographer Roberta Marroquin. Roberta is an exceptionally experienced photographer who has worked on various different projects over the years. I spoke to her about how she started in the industry, sustained a career in the field, and what it's been like travelling to places around the world taking photographs. I also spoke to her about the future of photography and her memorable travelling experience. So let's take a look. Thank you so much for coming on, Roberta. I really appreciate your time. How are you?
Thank you so much, Ships. I'm very, very, very good, and I'm very honored and happy to be here with you.
You're in New York, for those who don't know. Just before we go into your life, your career, just explain to people who you are really.
Well, I started photography since I don't know, I was very little, and I have been really passionate about art and photography since then. Maybe I guess since my teen years. And I study photography, I study art, and now I pretty much dedicate my life to photography.
I always like to take it back to the beginning and where it all sort of began with you and where that passion came from. So that's always important. So I like to sort of ask people where the initial love for travel came from. You're actually from, I said you live in New York, but you're from Mexico. So just explain your early beginnings.
Originally from Monterrey, Mexico, which is in the north of Mexico, it's the border between Texas and Mexico. And I think, and this is a story that I really never share with anyone. So it's really nice to be talking about it. I think it all started when I was around 8 years old because I went for my first summer camp, and I was just so happy to be in United States because I came to United States for the summer camp, and I didn't even miss being home. It was incredible. I had always had this non-attachment thing, very, very different than many of my friends or the families, and plus the parents, I think, in Monterrey, they never really let their kids go that young. And me, I was fascinated with the fact of being away. And by the way, I didn't even speak English by then. And I don't know how I did it, but I did my exams and my tests and I did it. So, and then I always saw my father taking pictures, and he was traveling always a lot for work. And I guess maybe in the back of my head, traveling was always just part of it. And then when I was finishing high school, my parents in Monterrey, by the time I was in high school, it was only 2 years. Normally, high schools are 3 years. So I was going to be very young starting university. So honestly, I'm very grateful that they gave me 2 years of 2 years of my life to study abroad. And I chose England and Italy to go. And I don't know how I did it, but I knew that I wanted to go 6 months in Cambridge, 6 months in London, and 1 year in Florence. And I left, and it was pretty much the most amazing opening. Actually, in England, in Cambridge, for me was beautiful because I met so many different people from so many different nationalities, religions, and I think it was then that it really opened my heart to learn more about people, about cultures. It really ignited. I mean, imagine it was a school for languages, so you had people from Saudi Arabia, China, Japan, Mexico, Costa Rica, so the whole world united there. And I was like, oh my God. So then, of course, then you make friends, and everyone, all of them, they're like, you have to come one day to my country. You have to come to my country. And I'm like, I want to go everywhere. So anyway, and after when I went to Florence, it was really like it ignited a huge passion for art. I mean, Florence, I don't know if you've ever been, but for me, it's one of the most magnificent cities I've ever been in my life, only because of the fact that everything is about art. Everything is beautiful. Any building, statues, any churches, it just cathedrals, anything has to do with so much art. So in Florence, I mean, and plus I started learning languages. For me, Italian was maybe because I speak Spanish, it was super fast for me to get into the language. And I started speaking. I started feeling very comfortable actually in the city. And of course, I started traveling a little bit around Florence and around Italy to learn more about the culture and everything. So in Florence, I studied Italian, arts, and photography. It was one of my first photo classes, and I think it's the element of the camera that allowed me to little by little start getting into photography even more. And then after those years, I went to university. I did my university years like every other kid, and in Monterrey, I found this photographer that was giving classes every Saturday. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna pursue this. And then I started going every Saturday, and I started just learning from him about the darkroom, about printing. And even just in those years of university, I was always, in a way, inventing myself travels to go in the summer and to do something to learn. So in one of the summers, I went back to England, and there I met this Israeli girl, and she's like, "Robbie, you have to come to Israel with me." So long story short, I go to Israel and Egypt, late '90s, and it was there that really I knew that it was photography, the career that I want to get into and just continue all my life. Because Israel, well, especially in Jerusalem, when for me what really struck my heart was how four religions in the world are united, and you see that part of the humanity that it is how we should all be united like that. I just knew then that it was going to be my path, photography. So because I started just taking pictures in of course in the whole city and in the markets, and I was just fascinated by the differences as well between people, and how from an old man to a baby you can find so much comfort and so much actually to learn. You can learn from those anyway. So after Israel, I just knew that it was going to be photography. And then after my studies, I went to live in France, where I did a second degree there in fine arts and photography. So Paris was just an amazing platform. There I really was just immersed in photography, period. It was just photography and fine art. And some of my classes were in museums, some others were in monuments. So it was just amazing. My classroom was Paris by itself.
I think with everything that you said, I've got a feeling that when you start something, so just going from your early age through to school, you've got the passion, which is what you need, and the mindset. Now, a lot of people, when they go into a career path, so for example, you seem to have had an idea that you wanted to go into the creative world, the art world, photography, and you had the mindset ready for it. You see, a lot of people, because you hear it all the time. You go through life. When I did my art degree, I knew I wanted to do this. Now, from a person from my heritage doesn't do art, and I was said, "Well, why are you doing art? This is like I would say, people will say this is like a Mickey Mouse degree," and you sort of get a little bit. You always try and defend it. You always sort of say, "No, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. If I believe in myself." So from everything that you've told me so far, it seems like you had a belief. You make the opportunity for yourself. So you do one thing, someone else sees it, and it's in the world of art, photography, anything. it's all about building your portfolio, isn't it? So then you can say,
Right.
right, I can take out my portfolio and say, this is what I've got. Bang, bang, bang. You've got a volume of work then. So I can see, and I totally understand it. You can bring in everything with it. It's all, the creative world is a beautiful world. How have you made a career out of it? Because you could do all of the stuff in school. You can collaborate as much as you want. What has been your secret to actually making a living out of it?
It's a beautiful question, and it has been definitely a challenge. And even now, it is still a challenge. So, I mean, after Paris, when I came to New York, I did 1 year of another studies, and then pretty much I launched my career, no, like really in a professional way. I started first, like any photographer, freelancing like crazy and doing things. I mean, one of the things that I fear the most is wedding photography, because honestly, and I admire wedding photographers only because of the fact that they're with the stress here. Like, it's just, I mean, imagine that you've missed the moment.
My brother's a photographer, professional photographer himself, and he's done a lot of weddings. And the stress, he tells me, what you go
Yeah,
through,
it's like
because you're
here,
right.
like, oh
Because
my god.
if you miss that moment, of them seeing each other in the eyes, or that kiss that people want to see, and
No,
you
no,
miss
no.
them,
Yeah,
or
like
oh my goodness, just imagine if you got that wrong.
the time as well. I mean, I only had one camera. It's not that I had like 2,000 cameras to have, just like 2 3 cameras with one lens in each. I just had like one, so I had to waste time in changing lenses and stuff. And it actually thanks to a dear friend of mine that she's a photographer, that she like started this wedding photography company, and that's how I started. And then I applied for another like a job through the school that I did here, and and actually I worked for many years with an amazing photographer that is pretty much the main mentor for me in terms of, yeah, I have learned so much from him. Edward Mapplethorpe. So he's the brother of Robert Mapplethorpe, the very well photographer. Learning from someone like that is like going to school. I was kind of like going to school every day with him. For me, it was, I was going to work every day like with a smile, like here. Like I loved it. I loved it because as well, it was like going back in time. Like I was in the darkroom with him. I was learning how to like print all this amazing, I mean, in big, I had the best time. And as well, in the other side, like I had like all the technological part that he needed. So it was a beautiful, beautiful time working with him. And then I started my first photo studio in 2013. And then this is the second photo studio where I am now. Is a second. I moved here in 2016, and pretty much so how I have done it is a mix. I mean, let's say I started more as a documentary photographer, but then with the years I was going more towards fine art. So I sell my work, and I mean, my dream is of course live of my art. Not happening now. It will happen in the future, I'm sure.
I'm
But
sure it will do.
in the meantime, as any photographer, especially living in a city like New York, I had to work like pretty much do commercial and then personal. In all the trips that I did, China, Japan, Syria, Lebanon, I was literally documenting the life there, the people, the food. It was more of and maybe and actually you're right. It's hard sometimes to use these terms because we have this preconceived maybe idea of what those mean. And at least for me, documenting something is when you follow up and you have a purpose to share that story. And then the fine art part for me is the things that come from my creativity, maybe because a mix of my background as a Mexican living, in all these places that have, make a mix of just creative thoughts, and boom, I put it into the work. And then the commercial part is the one that pretty much gives me food, like meaning the like, wedding
Yeah,
photography,
absolutely.
editorial work. I mean, any kind of commercial work, fashion photography. And the beauty of actually struggling a little bit in the commercial side is that, for example, when I started doing wedding photography, I didn't know anything about wedding photography. So it's like the same, asking or, internet, like looking stuff. And the same for anything, for fashion, for food, for architecture. And you start, accumulating just knowledge here and there. And I think it's the best way to learn is by doing things.
Sustaining it is even, so you can make it, but sustainability, how have you gone and done that?
It's a tricky question. So it's pretty much just don't don't doubt that I cannot do it. Like it's my mantra. Like pretty much just keep on firm and always, reaching out to client. Actually, something that I have learned with time is if you don't say what you want, people will not know. So at the end, it's like I started knocking on doors, especially with all the travels, all the beautiful people that I have met in my life until now. I mean, I realized, like, Robbie, why you don't literally knock on doors, and start asking, hey, I'm doing this, I can do this, I can putting proposals in the table.
If you don't ask, you're never going to know, are you? If you don't ask, you don't get.
Exactly. And actually, thanks to that, I started in the philanthropic world. In 2015, more or less, I was renewing my working visa, and I had to be in Mexico. I met this a fascinating woman called Sylvia, and Sylvia used to live in Kinshasa, Congo. And Sylvia started this beautiful nonprofit called Unclass, meaning in the classroom in French. Unclass dedicates pretty much, it helps education in Kinshasa, meaning so they provide. I mean, I don't know. Have you ever been to Kinshasa?
No, but I've been told so much about it. I had a guest on, I think, back in the summer last year, kept talking in the show, kept telling me about Kinshasa, Congo, and I was like, oh, I better go there sometime very soon.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So, I mean, it's so beautiful, but as well, it's very, very hard reality. I mean, I come from Mexico, so, I have lived it and I have seen many, places that strike your heart. I think I have never been in a place like Kinshasa in terms of, and when I went to see the schools, and it's like, oh my God, like it's really, really tough to see that reality, that lack, So anyway, Unclass helps the schools literally to have rooftops, to have desks, to have the basics. And so when I met Sylvia and she shared about this, I was like, oh my God, I would love to, like, maybe I could help in any way. So long story short, I did. And that's why when she took me to Kinshasa to document the schools, the kids. And it's where I started with the idea, like, Sylvia, let's do something. I mean, now after documenting and seeing this, I should just maybe create something artsy. And then we do like a show. And then from that, we help the kids in the schools. This is what we did. And it's beautiful. It has been such a beautiful collaboration. And, and it's something that I learned is that, I mean, imagine, chefs, I would love to be millionaire or billionaire, just to do whatever with my money, especially help. But something that I learned is that every single human being, we can do something to help the planet, to help each other. And maybe through me, it's through, my work. That's the way that I can give, but we can all put something. I mean, it has been a beautiful and profound collaboration, and it's all because of asking as well. Like, I mean, and connections, little connections, and then I asked her, like, let's collaborate, and she said, like, welcome aboard.
Can I just quickly ask you about some of the places you've been? I mean, I've seen your work, and you mentioned places like Syria, Japan, China. If you were to pick one of your favorite pieces, I mean, it's very difficult to do so. Which one sticks out in your mind?
There's one profound moment in my life. It's not that long, actually. In 2017, I was going through a very hard time in my life, and actually I was going to go to Kinshasa for the first time, but like one day before, literally taking the plane, I was in Paris to Kinshasa. Sylvia called, Robbie, we cannot go. Like they don't allow us to go. It's too much tension in the country. Like forget it. So we have to postpone it. I was like, so anyway, and I had planned in that trip that I was gonna do to Kinshasa that after to do a personal little to like little jump to Kenya and Tanzania for my own pleasure. I was like, you know what? I deserve it. It's for me. I'm gonna pamper myself 10 days. And I was like, oh my God. So the Kinshasa part was canceled. And then I was like, okay, maybe I just, I will extend a little bit. So I did at the end, maybe like 2 weeks in Kenya and Tanzania. And I mean, I don't even know. I mean, the whole thing was just a dream, right? And I was just mesmerized by nature and by what, yeah, what animals. I mean, I've never been in front of the big five, and finally there, I was like, so anyway, I remember, I guess I always ask, by the way, to be alone in the car. I mean, because as a photographer, really, I mean, we're very, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but very annoying to the people that are not photographers because we just want to stop and take photos. And I was really going in my speed. I wanted to do it in my own thing. So I guess the drivers, like that, they were taking me to the game drives. They saw my passion because I was just literally the whole day taking photos. So in Kenya, the driver that was with me all day, one day he's like, Roy, would you like to meet a Maasai tribe? And I'm like, of course, yes. Like, okay, because they're friends of mine. I'm like, let's go. So anyway, we go. I was received by the chief of the tribe, and I guess, I mean, I don't know, maybe that day he was busy. He literally leads me to a little kid. His name is Boy. And Boy, literally what he did is just explain thoroughly everything about his tribe. With so much love, so much care. He just took me. And then at the end of the little tour I mean, I think I was there maybe like 2 hours. He's like, would you like to see one of our homes inside? I'm like, of course. So I remember going inside. I mean, and outside is like bright, like there's no tomorrow, like, you know? And then we go in this house and like, it's pitch black. Pitch, are like, I don't see anything. And I was like, oh my God. And first is like, wow, I don't see anything. So they don't have electricity. And second thought was, oh my God, the perfect environment for a light painting. To share what is light painting, it's a beautiful technique that I learned actually in Paris with a teacher, and then in New York I continue exploring. So it's one of the most beautiful techniques that I love using because it's in complete darkness, and it's about, let's say, piercing the darkness with light. So it's working the other way around. From the dark, you bring the light. And the main thing is that the subject needs to be still, and then with a tripod, long exposures, and then I use a LED light, and literally, what is Olympia, like a shaman that does like this, to take all your bad energy. So imagine that. So I would literally leave the shutter, in bulb, like open, and then I will go close the subject, and then turn the light on, and then start like literally painting with light. So after he finished explaining everything, I told him like, listen, Boy, I'm very grateful that you took the time to, explain and share all your knowledge with me. But I wanted to ask you something. Maybe I want to share something that I know how to do and that I love, like I do it with passion, which is a portrait that is called light painting. I kind of explained. Say, will you be so kind, like, will you allow me to take a portrait? Of course. So anyway, long story short, the day after I go to take a portrait of Boy, and at the end it was like 3 portraits. You cannot imagine that portrait. I mean, for me, it has been one of the most, because I think I capture the soul not only of a beautiful human being, but of a tribe, the solemnity of tribes. Almost like king. For me, it was like this king of Maasai king, kind of. And yeah, and since then I've been 3 times to photograph. I pretty much have photographed the whole community by myself. By the way, I mean, I never had any assistant, any translator, nothing. So yes, and so imagine one of the first emails I received for New Year's Eve, from who it was, from him, wishing me a beautiful year ahead. So
Oh,
yes, it has changed my life, and I mean, there's so much beauty and so many beautiful people in the world that the more I discover, I just want to, continue. It's like, yeah, it's like this craving, of learning.
I've seen all the photos that you've sent me, and it is incredible. If I mean, it makes my work look like amateurish. I mean, you are on another level, I have to say. So the question I'll ask you now is this: you've made it into a success. Where do you see photography now, and where do you see it in the future?
The creativity, it's the infinite, and I think, well, something that I learned about you is to share a story, and I think every single story in the planet is worth listening to and is worth getting inspired from. So from all the stories, of course, we have a story to say, to tell, and so I believe, actually, now, maybe with what we have been all going through in the recent months, uh, something important is to unite strength. And I believe that we humans, we need to collaborate with each other. We need to, you know, to unite strength to make beautiful projects. So I do believe in projects. What exactly, I don't know. But maybe my career, I mean, I love to, as I say, I would love just to live from my art. I mean, I would love, my dream is like, I want my, let's say, my 8 hours that I spend in the studio a day, or whatever hours, that would be just to create my fantasy world and my things, instead of just being doing my commercial part. But as well, if the commercial part can be about engaging in things that have an impact, a meaningful, something meaningful, I will do anything. And now, more and more, I start receiving this, hey Robbie, we should do this, we should do that. So I don't know exactly what is the formula, but something that I know is with passion, and and not things. I mean, I have worked so much, and I believe it's until now that I start seeing my career actually going up. And I've been since 2000 starting with this, and it's until now we're 2001, and I feel now that I'm not green. I'm more of I'm more solid, and I know what I want. But as you said, it's through doing, and I have done so many mistakes as well, Shep. So many, and I think it's part of where I am now.
A lot of people have said, you need to have a mix of what you do. So you can't just do photography now. You've got to do. They say jack of all trades, so you're gonna have to be able to write. And so, do you see that happening?
I definitely see the part of multitasking 100%. That you need to be like videographer, photographer, expert in drones, and do. I definitely understand that part, and because we live in a very competitive world, and as you said, like, now everyone is a photographer, which is fine. I'm not taking credit out of, it's beautiful to see that people can do it, in 1 year instead of 20. Beautiful, good for them. But definitely it has changed as well, because there's so many photographers as well, even in the commercial side. You remember, maybe in 2000, how much money, for example, fashion photographers, like the real ones,
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah, 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 yeah.
were doing. Nowadays, not even dreaming, I mean, of doing that. So it's because there are so many people doing the same, which, as I say, it's fine, but it will. I think the more skillful we are, definitely it's gonna help, because then you can do different things. Like, me, it's not necessarily that I love doing, all these. So I, in my other side that I do money, is like doing editorials. So I do all editorials for these magazines, and I meet beautiful people. But it's something that, I mean, I will not really do it in my for my personal work, but it opens doors as well, and it opens
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
opportunities.
yeah, yeah.
So it's the same, is, finding your niche and diversifying it, actually.
What I was trying to get at was that solely being a photographer, that potentially could be a harder task. I'm not saying you can't do it. I hope people will be. I think eventually people will get sick of certain types of photos and stuff, and then people would want to. It's like fashion. You were just talking about fashion. It can turn back and go back to. I hope anyway. Some people don't believe that, but I hope it does go back the other way, because you'd want to see authenticity within a work.
The 21 years that I've been doing photography, very few photographers that I've been, either studying or have are still now photographers. So everyone quits because photography is not going to give you a house in the, in the Caribbean. It's not going to give you a jet. So no, that, yeah, you have to go to, to study finance, or becoming, I don't know, an astronaut, I guess, But definitely photography, you need to have the passion. Money is not just going to come right away. You need to really work hard and work, and patience. The only thing about this job is as well patience and cultivating your network, and understanding as well that the network is important to have a very responsible and a human side of it, because as well in the industry sometimes it's hard to that people don't, that some people, they don't treat each other with respect, or you know or you're just a number. And no, we have to treat each other with a human side, let's say, with a beautiful human side.
Have you got any memorable experiences from some of your travels then?
One that I love it. In 2019, before going to photograph one of the tribes for tribal transformation in Bhutan, the Mompas, I don't know what got into me. I guess, because I'm a photographer, I'm not a hiker. So I did this 21-day hike in the Himalayas called the Snowman Trek. And it's considered the toughest in the world. The toughest because of the length of it and the altitude. So it's 5,250 meters and 15,700, I don't know, feet. Um, it was, Chef, every day it was between 8 hours to 11 hours hike. And I took two cameras, my clothes plus like two cameras, my tripod. I divided like two backpacks because I had someone helping me. If not, I was not going to be able to do it alone. And it was beautiful, but super hard. I trained myself in a year, but as I said, I'm not a hiker, I'm a photographer, And literally, it started as a very individual. I kind of sign up for it because I was like, I want to do something different. And I heard of it, and now like I want to do it. And I think it's less than 1,000 people in the world that we have done it. So it's very few people. You can Google it, Snowman Trek. It's amazing. So anyway, when I kind of like sign up, and I did it in a very individual way. I was like, it's gonna be my experience, my. But once I was there, we were six hikers plus the two main guides, and then I had like an assistant with me, and then another one, and then we had the crew because it was 21 days. Once you start, you cannot go back. The only way is by chopper, and I think sometimes it takes 3 days for it to arrive. Once in the hike, when you start really, it's a lot of effort, and it's a tremendous amount of resilience that you suddenly realize that you have, because everything hurts and everything, it was raining and muddy, and it became a beautiful, profound experience of a group. So something individual became almost like a family. So if you were fine, the other one was fine, we were all good. So at the end, it just changed the whole thing, and it was so profoundly beautiful. And I think that is what took me a little bit into the meditation world, because it was, and it helped me, by the way, to pretty much live last year in a more peaceful and more profound way. Because after that, I mean, I was like, just be grateful of, just being alive, being present, having health, and the rest. I mean, even though, anyway, I live in a small apartment. So even though if it was small or not small, it's not about that. It's about, what is here and what is here. So I think that was the snowman track that gave me, because as well, every single day, the moment, any second, you can make a mistake. And believe me, you don't want to do any mistake there. So you just become resilient.
I did something very similar out of my comfort zone when I went to do Machu Picchu, and just to do that trek, it took me out of my comfort zone. And I kept saying to myself, why am I doing the trek? I could have just taken a train up to Machu Picchu, and sleeping in, and it was freezing, and I got dehydrated at one point and things like that. And you were talking about people. There was 12 of us who done the trek, and I remember we all became in unison. We were all in it together. We were giving each other food, high fives. That experience that you get definitely changes you for the better, and it's all worth it at the end of it, you see. So when you go up to Machu Picchu and you see it, for myself, when I saw the iconic site, it was just like, oh my god, this is why I've trekked. And you realize at the end of it that is the beauty of it, you see.
When you're in those landscapes and there's nothing but you and beauty, because the only thing that our planet has is just beauty around. And you realize that we underestimate how beautiful is our planet, and that it thrives if we just let it thrive. And I think these kind of trips, it just makes you kinder to your heart, to, okay, let's just be kind to ourselves so we can be kind to the planet, actually.
When you sort of relax, do you have anything to sort of get your mind off things?
I've been just fascinated by nature with my travels. So I just love being in nature. I love hiking, and of course, if I can be with friends, I love my friends. I'm very into, like, I love having my little community of friends. But I started meditating not long ago and reading a lot, because I never gave the time myself to really emerge in the books that I wanted to read. And I think maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because of last year, but I've been more into tuning with nature, with reading, and just friends, basics.
I love the meditation aspect of it, you see. So just to sort of just relax and just taking your mind off things and just meditating it away is a great way of detoxing, in some respects, your mind and soul. Anything that we can look forward to development wise?
Actually, I'm continuing with the tribe project, and this year we're heading to Namibia and Botswana to photograph the Tambushman, and perhaps another tribe in Tanzania, in the north of the country. I have just personal projects, some exhibits, possible exhibits, and I think it's still so many things uncertain. So I wish I could have plans more of a steady, but no, this is the main, like, let's say, thing that I'm aiming. Of course, I'm going to be doing personal work and commercial work, but nothing that I have big.
One other question, actually, about, because I have to ask you this, in terms of like your family, because obviously you said you were from Mexico and you live in the United States now, in New York. Is it tough sometimes not going to see your family?
So normally I try to go at least twice a year. And well, last year I was just, I just came from Mexico not long ago. I went to visit my family for Christmas.
Have you been able to maybe commit to relationships? Has that been something that you've been able to do?
I was married. I've been divorced since 4 years, but I have always, I mean, actually, my career has never been an issue, or you always make the things work in one way or another. And yeah, my marriage, I mean, it ended for just, I guess, life reasons, nothing in particular and nothing horrible. And now at this point of my life, I'm just pretty much, I've been focusing a lot in my career, and eventually I'm sure, opportunities always come. You meet beautiful people always, uh, and I don't think, even though that I travel a lot, there's always opportunities to craft yourself around.
Roberta, I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate everything that you told me. That it's a fascinating story. I could talk to you all day, all night, and still not, still have more to talk about.
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. It's been an honor for me, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Well, Roberta, thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you very soon.
Thank you so much.
What a wonderful individual Roberta is. I thoroughly enjoyed getting to know her. If you'd like to follow Roberta on her journey, you can do so by following her through her social media platforms. The details are on your screen now. That's it for Take a Wander with Shebs. Hope to see you all very soon. Until next time, bye for now.